As tensions escalate between Israel and Iran, global attention is once again turning to one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, the Strait of Hormuz. With around 20% of the world's oil passing through this narrow waterway, any disruption could send shockwaves through the global energy markets. Today, I'm joined by Alex Hodes, Director of Energy Market Strategy. Thank you for joining us, Alex.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So the Israel-Iran conflict is intensifying and the Strait of Hormuz becomes increasingly a source of concern for the oil markets. Why is that?
So this strait accounts for about 20 million barrels per day of oil that's transported through it. This accounts for 20% of global oil supplies, so it's a major choke point. It's a supply route for some of the major Gulf oil producers, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Oman as well. So if there are any disruptions here, it could be a disruption to the global oil supplies.
And in the past, Iran has threatened on several occasions to shut the strait, but never really did so. Do you think it could be different this time?
Judging by their rhetoric around the strait itself, they even have stated that it is a sensitive subject. So even with them coming in a lot more hawkish on from time to time, their approach towards the strait makes me think that it is unlikely that this is the case. However, there could be alternative supply sources at risk. And that would be something more kind of on the Iranian side of things. There is one oil terminal in particular in Iran called, that's on Karg Island. It accounts for 90% of Iranian oil exports. So that would account for about 1.5 million barrels per day of export capacity. So that is actually a large supply risk. That is more of a potential supply risk than the closure of the Strait of Hormuz.
And the strait might not be closed yet, but over the weekend it was reported that over 900 vessels in the strait and the Persian Gulf lost navigation signals or experienced electronic interferences. Is this enough to disrupt supplies?
It definitely will disrupt some transport through the canal and through the strait as well. Overnight, there was actually a collision between two UAE tankers and a fire started. It's not been reported whether it was due to a electronic interference, but this is just one of the ways that Iran could disrupt some of this transportation. However, if we look in the past, this has never been substantially closed. Even during the 1980s tanker wars, there was not a substantial closure. Tanker rates will likely spike, and if there is some ability to diversify from the strait, that will be taken.
And which countries could be the most affected by a closure of the Strait of Hormuz if it was to happen?
So Saudi Arabia transported about 40% of the amount through the strait. So they transported about 5.5 million barrels per day. So on the surface, it looks like they are the most exposed. However, they have a pipeline that's been built from the east to the west to avoid this and basically diversify their supply away from the Strait of Hormuz. And they would be the first ones to basically start diverting their supplies. It has capacity for 5 million barrels, but in the past, they've been able to expand this to 7 million barrels per day. So ultimately, if things do get a little bit hairy in the strait, they will start increasing their supplies to the Red Sea as opposed to going through the strait. And we haven't yet seen those loadings start to be affected. So out of looking at some of the other major producers in the area, the UAE is also at risk. They transported about 3.3 million barrels per day in 2024. So they are large players in oil production, but we have yet to really see oil loading slow. So right now it's more of a risk that needs to be quantified in the market.
What are the solutions or alternatives to it?
So there are some, only the UAE and Saudi Arabia have really developed the infrastructure to avoid it. So some of the other countries really do not have any alternatives. However, an escalation in the strait could be seen as an act of war from Iran, and we would likely see some more interventions from some of the other major powers, as it would have the likelihood of, if there was an all-out closure, we could see oil prices back into the $100 per barrel level.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your analysis, Alex.
Thank you.
For more videos like this, please do like and subscribe.